Dear Senator Davis, please keep public education cuts to a minimum.
Well, it was 2 years ago today when Senator Wendy Davis helped push lawmakers into a special session with a long filibuster in protest of education cuts. This year's session has been a lot less contentious. Our roundtable is back. So you saw Wendy Davis there. That was the big education fight back then. Right. It seems like we have a different argument this time because Democrats got a lot of that money back that they've been asking for. The majority of those cuts have been restored.
Right.
What else are we seeing with schools this session?
You know, if you talk to legislators after or during the last election cycle and said, you know, what do you hear from your voters about education? Is it these cuts that you made? They said, no, 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 no. It's tests. It's standardized tests. People are really, really cranky about standardized tests. So one of the bills that's up today is reducing the number of required tests for kids in public schools from 15 to either 5 or 7 or wherever we land on
exactly,
this.
right.
The governor has a higher number in mind. The legislators have a smaller number in mind. This is actually one of the pieces that when they get to the end of this, will maybe this is special session bait, maybe this is veto bait.
What's the big argument between the numbers? I mean, we've been covering this a lot here at KXAN, and it seems like no one can really agree on that number exactly.
Right. Well, the two things that happen in that bill, talking about HB 5, is the balance between flexibility and graduation, but then also rigor in terms of the curriculum. That's been the big fight. We saw it from day one of the session. Right. Speaker Strauss had made it a key point and in fact said to Texans, I've heard you on standardized testing and we're going to address it. Again, it's fascinating to me that here we are on day 139 of the session and all of these things remain in play. And again, I'll be curious to see, is 5 end-of-course exams, EOCs, enough to ensure that the students in the public schools are getting the rigor that they need or not? I mean, there's a little bit of balls in the air in terms of what's good for you and what's good for me and whether they'll be able to strike a deal on it.
Yeah, voters hate standardized tests, but on the other hand, they want the schools and the teachers and the students to be accountable for what they've done, and tests are how they measure that. So there's a synchronization problem between curriculum and testing that they need to figure out. And the question here is whether they've figured it out to the governor's satisfaction.
That's right. And the other thing, too, is this culture now has been going for more than 20 years almost exactly, going back to Governor Bush coming in, reforms that happened just before him, and something that Perry has been very strong on throughout his term as governor. And so that culture is locked in. The question is it something that can be reduced in a way that still satisfies those goals of rigor and yet makes parents happy, makes teachers happy, and solves that problem which has been so contentious.
House Bill 5 will be one of the big bills that we see today on this last day before the last day, I guess, because they've got a midnight deadline to pass really anything that needs to get through in these final hours. Kind of set the tone for me. You guys have been to several sessions, right? How many have you been to?
10, 12, something like that.
How about you?
Well, I've been following this since '96. This is one of my first full sessions to cover, but have been working on our stories now for, you know, more years than I can count, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is only my second, so kind of set me up. What's this last day really like, the mood in the House and Senate?
You know, there's a lot of, you know, this is the last minute stuff. They sort of know what they need to do, and there's some question in the air about how they'll vote. And really, that's where the tension is. So we're in the last 5 minutes of a TV drama, right? Clock's ticking down, and we'll see if they close it or if they have a train wreck and we come back Tuesday morning.
And one of the things that I know is happening in the House right now with that large contingent of freshmen, more than 40 freshman members, I think that there is concern on the leadership side that at this late in the session, with the stakes as high as they are, will those members begin to get nervous? I mean, will they sort of back away on some of these things because so much is hitting so fast? And that is something that remains to be seen. It'll be a fascinating day to watch in the House. It will be a long one, but it will be a fascinating day to see how it all shakes out.
We keep talking about the special session for this summer, but when we come back to the whole education idea, we used to be talking about a special session next spring for school finance, depending on what happens with the court decision, because that's still all up in the air.
If they don't have a special session right now because of something that's going on today or tomorrow, then they've been talking about 2 special sessions. There's a redistricting case involving the Voting Rights Act in the United States Supreme Court, and there's some question after that decision comes out, probably sometime before the 4th of July, does Texas have a special session on redistricting to adjust to that? And that would be, you know, sometime between now and the elections. And then school finance is pending. Judge John Dietz in Austin issued a bench ruling, I guess in February, and said the school finance system in Texas was unconstitutional, but we still haven't seen a written ruling. And the expectation is that his written ruling will be appealed to the Texas Supreme Court, that sometime after that the legislature will come back with some kind of remedies if they need to.
And the whole funding thing that they restored the cuts might kind of sway some decisions, I guess, because those cuts aren't
There's
so
some
bad.
discussion to that. I don't know that that's actually right.
I think that will probably be part of the message, which is that, you know, for better or worse, we may not be we may be approaching a crisis now, but we're not at a crisis because all of this money has been put back in. Whether that will affect it or not remains to be seen, but that certainly has been some of the talk. Also interesting with the redistricting case, because of the Shelby County case that the Supreme Court is expected to rule on, I think the Attorney General's notion is he would like to see those interim maps approved, because his feeling is if we can jump on that and get these interim maps done, if Shelby County rules that the Section 5 is no longer necessary or has to be tweaked, and he feels that pre-clearance goes away, then those then become the maps. And so there's an interesting level of sort of politics and timing. Can they get that done in time so that they have these going forward? Because what they don't want is another delayed primary in 2014. They want these things done and set in stone so that they have a clear window of what's going to happen.
All right, well, we've got one more day left before it's all over, right? So we'll see what happens.
Right.
Thank you guys for being with
Josh.
us. And our conversation continues online. Be sure to visit the legislative section of KXAN.com. There you'll find our guide to the legislative process in Texas, our list of the major players, and my blog from the Capitol. It's all in our legislative section on KXAN.com. You can email me your thoughts and questions at josh.hinkle@KXAN.com. You can also find me on Twitter at HinkleJ. Thanks for joining us for In Session In Depth. Have a great morning.